Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing our Wallachia run. Last episode we kind of did all that there was leading up to securing for ourselves northern Transylvania as a country with Romanian culture in order to unlock this Easter egg character that's going to be around at least through November, which is good old Dracula. He's erudite, imposing, charismatic, and there's actually a lot of events related to him that we are going to be unlocking and taking a look at, as part of kind of the flavor. For this episode, we are also going to be doing a few things as it relates to jockeying him around so he finally gets in charge. And I think throughout the run, we're going to try and play around with some of the events that allow us to swap ideology, because Dracula is in fact immortal. He can't die, won't stop, won't come inside unless you invite him, which is why once he's in charge, we're going to stop declaring war on people unless they allow us to come inside. Now, before we get him in charge, we are going to try and finish passing laissez-faire, but we're also going to kind of abuse applications before 1.8. When this abuse will no longer be possible, we are going to abdicate twice in order to get him in charge of the government. We could have done this through event, but then he wouldn't have been in charge of the IG. Now, with him in charge of the interest group, we are going to be able to get him in charge of the government and the interest group, which is going to be good for us overall, especially if we're doing some weird things to fiddle around with his ideology and change it to ideologies that are a little bit more favorable in terms of laws. We actually get a little bit of an interesting event here. So Dracula is in fact immortal. He will never die of old age. We're not really sure if you can kill him through event yet, though. This hasn't been confirmed as far as I can tell. So we get the Waffling Revolutionary event. Normally, you just kind of click this one, and okay, sometimes if you absolutely positively can't give the interest group attraction up, you don't click this one, but overall the trade-off seems somewhat reasonable. Or if you really want to kill an agitator, this one's sometimes okay. Now, half the time, we're just going to get, minus popularity on him for 2 years, and it's going to allow the Civil War to progress another 10%. However, there's a 50% chance we roll the death event, and I'm not sure what that does with a kind of immortal character. And I think we could take multiple, we could click this button at multiple dates, and I think it might give us different outcomes each time. I don't really know how safe scumming on these events works, but we're going to take a go and see if Dracula dies. So we get another 10% progress, so that is not a death for Dracula there, because we didn't roll the death event. Alright, this is going to be our 5th reload to try and see if we can kill Dracula with this event. So far, every single time we just roll the plus 10% revolution progress rather than the one that kills Dracula. So I think it's just the case that you can't save scum these events. But this time, we're going to try and advance to the following month before kind of clicking this event and just see if we could maybe take another go at it. Yep, so it does seem to be the case that you can't save scum these just by rolling them on a different day, or we rolled the same thing 6 times in a row, and that to some extent is interesting news to me, because I didn't know whether or not you could save scum events or not just by having them resolve on a different day. It doesn't seem to be the case, but if anyone tests this out and notices anything to the contrary, please put it down in the comments below. So we passed laissez-faire, and I just wanted to draw attention to the 2 unique Romanian companies, or Wallachian companies, or companies in Wallachia, and that is first the Steaua Romania. Not sure how the pronunciation is, but this one's an interesting one, giving an additional 20% oil extractors throughput. I think it's probably worse than Standard Oil in the USA, but this is definitely kind of a decent shout as far as oil companies go. I think it's better than the migration attraction just to get more throughput, and it does require being in Wallachia and having oil rigs, which of course Wallachia does achieve. And then also this one, which is Cael Frate Romane, not sure how it's pronounced again, and this one does require Romanian homeland, which of course we satisfy that objective, and at least 2 states need to fulfill this objective of also having a railway. This one's a bit interesting, gives land, trade route capacity, and infrastructure. Unfortunately, this is a prosperity bonus. It is really, really difficult to get a prosperity bonus on a railway company, as good as railway companies are, because you don't get throughput on railroads in terms of base, and so throughput is very valuable on railroads. Being able to produce railroads faster is something that's very valuable from a construction efficiency basis like perspective, and this bonus is pretty good. Land trade route capacity is... I'm actually not entirely sure how good a bonus that is. I think it's decently solid, but 5% infrastructure on top of that, that is something that is pretty attractive, but you're just never going to get this prosperity bonus because of the way it's calculated. It's calculated productivity relative to all other buildings, not relative to other railroads, and it will be very difficult to achieve. We might see this kind of changed up in 1.8 in terms of achieving prosperity bonuses here, but as it stands now, this company is just probably not worth slotting in, and there's certainly very easy, good railroad companies to get, like the Antofagasta one, which also gives infrastructure, and is probably just better, but very keyly and very importantly, that one has a sulfur mines as its potential, so it's much easier to hit the productivity bonus. But I thought it'd be worth highlighting kind of the two regional companies, I think it's just the two, that kind of appear in the homelands of Wallachia. We decided to settle for the very standard iron and lead generic company, but now we've made an army for our dear friend Dracula here. We've made an army that, if I may come inside, say what army, and the next order of business is going to be getting him on the throne, and in order to do that, we're going to do a little bit of double abdication cheese. We are going to abdicate to these guys' movement for presidential republic that is currently in action, brewing up. So we're going to try to pass slavery in order to make these guys as mad as possible. They're going to get big upset. Hopefully that's enough to make them insurrectionary. Radicalism's very high. Oh no! Whatever will we do other than leave office? Now, we actually want the landowners to be very powerful, so what we're going to do is we're going to slot the landowners out before we abdicate, and we're going to put in a bunch of groups that we just kind of aren't very, very big fans of. Other than the Intelligentsia, because obviously they're insurrectionary, so we can't put them in. And we're going to click confirm, and then we are going to abdicate, and this will allow us to swap onto whatever the Intelligentsia is supporting in this revolution, if they are supporting a particular law, or not passing a law, and if there's nothing that is being supported, then it'll just be based off their base ideology, which, including Republican, is going to swap us onto a presidential republic here. So, we're going to abdicate. This is the classic that is going to be removed in 1.8, almost certainly. And we will do flee across the borders. Oh no. And we will become a presidential republic. But wait, there's more. You see, these landowners, they're really pissed. And you know what they support? As traditionalists, on top of their base ideology actually enforcing what they actually care about, which is they strongly endorse monarchy. So if we abdicate to them instead, and let's stop passing this ban slavery nonsense because we actually want to do that. If we back down in a revolution to them instead, what we will get is we will be able to abdicate directly to being a monarchy again, but put Dracula in charge. So this is very much exactly what we want to do. We have to find a law that is going to piss off the landowners specifically, and no one else that is extremely powerful. So it can't piss off the industrialists. We need the landowners to be in charge of the revolution. So we settled for trying to pass homesteading. We don't really want homesteading, but what we need is these guys to be insurrectionary. They are, which is fantastic, because now we can resign from office. Now we do want to slot these guys out of government first. We're going to slot the devout in, because we don't really like the devout. We don't want them to have a lot of clout, those devout. And what we are going to do is we are going to resign from office, again, getting the hands thrown up event, and what this will do is, since these guys are insurrectionary, and they have an opinion. They have a strong opinion, a rather strong opinion regarding governance principles. We will get this event, and when we're helpless below the coming storm, we will enact monarchy. Which monarch will they choose? Whoever is the biggest power inside of this rebellion, which only being the landowners, is of course the big cheese, the big daddy himself, Mr. Dracula. He wants to suck our blood, and he's gonna do that. And so now he is in charge of the presidency. So he is now a general. Or presidency. Don't you mean monarchy? Excuse me. Excuse me. Yes, he is now the monarch. Why did it say he's president? In either case, now he's the monarch. He is the prince of Wallachia. And he is also, we made sure to make him a general beforehand. And he, of course, will lead our mighty army into battle if if of course we may come inside. Now, for this, we now are giving ourselves the restriction: we cannot start a war except against someone who has already invited us into a war, or, we can sway in if someone will invite us into the war in that way, and we can start no more wars. We, of course, should have started a war before we did this, but this doesn't quite fit with the flavor, and okay, this is what we are going to be doing. Now, a big part of why we have this huge money balance, which is absurd, is because we were not as active as we should have been in regards to the investment pool. As soon as we passed laissez-faire, 2 million ducats was just unleashed into our economy because we weren't privatizing buildings as aggressively as we should have been. Definitely a little bit of a miss, but now we are going to really, really pop off economically. We've already doubled construction since the start of the episode, and we're going to be able to keep on popping off. We have several kind of expenses that we're bringing in here, and some of these we're going to be altering our play pattern slightly as a result of our agreement or our decision to not blast super hard and not declare wars ourselves, which is that we're going to add Navy a little bit more actively. We've declared an interest over here in Mexico in order to try and maybe get invited to the USA-Mexico war that's likely to occur, and we're going to be keeping an eye out for other wars that are likely to occur. I think Central Asia is also a decent shout if Persia's not grabbed all the land that they're going to normally grab, because Persia will also generally be attacking people. But we currently do not have as many interests as we'd like, and so us increasing in power rank or building a navy in order to generate more interests is going to be something that is quite valuable for us, as well as kind of keeping an eye on places that are normally going to have a little bit of a war. Like the Ottoman Empire might keep declaring on Egypt, but they're likely to declare wars over here. We see over here, very likely for us to be able to get an opportunity to join a war in North Africa, because France is going to declare on one of these guys, and we can side in to maybe try and fight France, although that seems like maybe not the healthiest decision. But also, we're a vampire, so we don't care about health. There is one exception for ourselves for this rule, which is we are not going to limit ourselves for taking Romanian states, because everyone knows if it's your house, you do not, in fact, need to be invited inside. Something is not right in the state of Denmark. And it is not Denmark, first of all, so that's one of the things that's not right. But secondly, Tanase Yarka, that is a cautious boyo. Normally we're into that type of thing. But he is very, very suspiciously the leader of the interest group. I had forgotten that this is the way it works now. You cannot have your ruler be the leader of the interest group. This happened in a relatively recent patch. And so our machinations were all for naught. We will not be able to have him be simultaneously leader of the IG and also monarch. Unless we messed something up and you just can do it, but you can't abdicate into it. Maybe we should test that out. So, we recorded most of an episode before we decided that the memes were just too reliant on him being, or in order to get, the full flavor, we really need to have him as both IG leader and leader of the nation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this earlier point in the run, and we are going to make him both. It turns out you can do this after a little bit of investigation. What we are going to need to do is we are going to need to make him first president, and then once he is president, we are going to need to pass monarchy. And so this is going to be a little bit of a two-step process. The first is, this guy is just going to be president for forever, because he's 35, and he's president for life. Shout out to Vladimir Putin. And so the first thing we're going to need to do is we are going to need to get off of autocracy, and so we're going to go on to landed voting. This is a voting system. It will allow us to change, and it will give us the best shot at being able to keep Dracula, or get Dracula as the next president. So this is what we're going to do. And then once Dracula's president, then we'll try and pass monarchy. Something like this. I think that in theory, we could maybe use an abdication if we abdicate to something like the petite bourgeoisie, who support, and this guy really supports it, supports monarchy. If we abdicate to these guys no, this won't work. We can't abdicate to those guys. We can't abdicate once Vlad is president, because then it gets rid of him. So we will just have to, pass the laws the old-fashioned way rather than just abdicating into them, which is, a little bit refreshing, but also we all kind of recorded most of this episode, and so now we're re-recording it. So that do be a vibe. Dracula has earned a promotion? I think so too. We get a nice side with Great Britain in one of their colonial wars, which resets their attitude towards us, and so we can kind of lock in what is basically the last trade agreement. Also, that we need with the GPs, or we already have a lot of them. I do think Austria is also on the table. France revved, so they're on the table, but we are going to have locked in one with the UK, Persia, Russia, Prussia, the United States. Really good shape. A lot of this was done last episode. Also, what we are doing right now is when we make it so that we are just not going to join any war or start any war, only join wars because we are invited, because we're a vampire, this type of thing. What you really want for this sort of thing is to have a whole bunch of diplomatic interests all over the place, and so we're going to be kind of trying to do wars that allow us to do this, one of which is going after Persia here, Persia being kind of a good spot to go for because they're going to declare on Kandahar, very likely because they have return state CB. Alright, things are going very smoothly so far. We ran really low taxes as long as we were in this 90% bracket to try and get the law through faster, and because we were ramping up construction, we've now tripled construction relative to game start here, but we just got on to landed voting. Clout's not looking too hot, but looking at the election, what is likely, the likely projected winner so far is the Conservative Party, of which the person with the very most clout is Dracula, and so this looks absolutely fantastic for them winning the election, and of course, once they win the election, then they're president, and once they're president, we can be free to go back onto monarchy, which is going to be fantastic for us. It will upset the Intelligentsia, but I don't think them by themselves will be too much concern. They do have a lot of clout right now, but a big part of this is just clout that is being boosted up by the fact that we abdicated not too long ago, and so this will decay over time, and so they will become much less of a factor. We are still on state religion, and so they don't really have too many academics overall in our country, and so it's really not too big a concern. So this is ending up being a lot smoother than I was anticipating. I was anticipating a little bit of trouble. Hey, Dracula wins the election, and we will, of course, reform the government to put him in, which will be nice and easy. And now here comes maybe the part where we encounter a little bit of trouble, but down to 13% clout, and not even that mad at us anymore is the Intelligentsia. Partially, I think that they kind of well, we've recouped a lot of this radicals, but this should be pretty good enough for us. I don't think that they'll have enough clout to really create too big a movement, and we will be able to get back onto monarchy here. 42% chance, pretty good clip, and then we'll also have voting in with this as well. Landed voting, not sure if this is exactly what we want. I think we actually want, something much more progressive in terms of clout, but I think that also we do maybe want to keep I think that we're going to be able to lean into the landowners, and that we want to keep them relatively strong, which is an entirely new phenomena, and so it's perhaps the case that we want to actually stay on landed voting or wealth voting specifically, so that we can keep the clout of the landowners particularly high, especially because we're going to get some events that have to do with this. Yeah, 74 is not too scary. I think just in case, we will take a look at. So there's two ways we could go about trying to get them to stop doing this. One, they're very mad. Just kidding. They got very pissed. But first of all, we could suppress them, which would be effective enough. But also, whenever we kind of take to recruiting a general, what we could do is we could have fired all these generals beforehand, but we don't want the Intelligentsia weak forever. But we could recruit other non-Intelligentsia generals to also dilute their clout. And the thing that we have to try and do is just keep them under 80%, and then we should be relatively fine. We nab another trade agreement with France. Of course, we had a trade agreement a long time ago with other France, but now they've revved, and so we should have a trade agreement with France for at least a couple years before they, inevitably rev again. We have seen Turkey / the Ottomans rev 3 times. I don't know what's going on here. I don't think I've seen an AI rev this many times in a row, and we've just kind of started highlighting it now, so that's very weird. But we will be parking an interest there, just in case we can get some stuff done. Also, we are siding here on the side of Brazil. Now, since Dracula is now in charge, we are implementing our new strategy, which is we will not declare a single play against anyone again unless they invite us inside. But Brazil's invited us inside. So now Brazil is free game because they said, hey, you can come inside, welcome to my house. And we'll say, sure. And this will come back to bite them later. And we will take that as one of the people we can declare war on, which is fine enough. We got a trade agreement there. Before all this happened, we did declare war on Sindh with the idea that this is actually one of the better expansion spots in the entire game. We don't utilize it too often. It's one of the very best places to produce opium. It has a very, very large amount of sulfur. So if you're ever going to run out of sulfur, this is actually a really strong state. And beyond that, it has a Mappy River bonus and one of the few bonuses that gives 20% plantations throughput and also has opium. I think it might just be this river complex in the entire game, at least up until 1.8. These resource areas are going to get reworked. We'll see what it shakes out at. But this is one of the very best places to produce opium in the entire game. If you don't have an opium source, we don't have an opium source. And so this will be pretty valuable in terms of the plays that we can actively declare. And as far as our interests go, this is what things look like. Got a lot of native interests. We can make some moves. We can side with some plays. We can get invited into some buildings. And of course, do our vampire thing. Leading the charge, of course, is Dracula in the army once we pass monarchy, because we can't have him in under presidential republic. We're almost on monarchy, but he will soon be leading the, if I may come inside, say what? Army. Here is an example of one of the events that we were kind of alluding to that was going to play quite nicely in Dracula, or focusing on Dracula specifically allows us to change his ideology. Let's kind of read through it. Pondering the ever-changing world around him, Dracula wonders if he too may change with it. Dracula turns the pages of the Bucharest Sentinel, absorbing information as a sponge takes blood. He sucks it up. And what this will eventually allow us to do is we can change to market liberal, we can change to authoritarian, and we can just have a little bit of a push. And for this, I actually really like this event a whole lot, even independent of consideration, independent of this event just being good. I think that events that allow you to change your ideology tend to be kind of interesting. They're not necessarily balanced because ideology is really, really important, but people change over time, and the ability to change an ideology to an adjacent ideology, I think, also provides a little bit of a narrative structure of the development of, characters over time. Before, he'd been living hundreds and hundreds of years. He hadn't taken, any sort of participation in politics for a long time, and then Dracula gets into power here as president of Wallachia, and now he's like, whoa, all this traditionalism nonsense, this doesn't make sense anymore. You know what we're gonna do? Through capital comes power. This is the Industrial Revolution, baby. And now we be a market liberal, and a market liberal is very, very nice for, IG approval. They are going to be very happy with us overall, and they are also going to allow us to pass all the good laws, laissez-faire, child labor allowed, how else are you going to send them to the mines, free trade, and also commercialized agriculture. This is going to allow you to also have a net kind of higher approval, and maybe play into the landowners more than you otherwise would, which I think is kind of an opportunity that Dracula provides, because you get to lock this in forever. He's not going to die, and he's going to have the market liberal ideology forever. Now, making him ruler is probably not ideal, but we're going to be doing it anyways, because obviously. And we pip the monarchy, which is actually going to be pretty nice that we have this authority. I mean, I don't think that this is a reason to normally go monarchy in most games. We could actually even increase this a little bit and see what we could put in for a pinch. We will do that. We can do this. We were trying to we were trying to be a little bit more smooth with our curve in terms of how we were upping this and lowering it, but now I think we're going to go back down to minimum government wages, which will also weaken the Intelligentsia. Maybe we should have been floating this the entire time. Very nasty hobbitses with the land reformer ideology, but we do have Dracula as our new king. He is quite well loved, with a bunch of timed modifiers here, which has been kind of nice. We've luck-sacked quite a bit of that, and now we're taking a look at the Unite the Principalities JE here, and that we need to kind of put in. I think that we're going to need to subjugate the Moldavia here, and also we're going to need to have good relations with Austria, which I was unaware that this was the case. We have a negative, lobby with them, which is kind of painful now that we have to try and get a little bit closer to them, that we have this. But so far they're not too upset, and so we are going to try and improve relations and move towards that JE, because I think that causes them to release a bunch of Romanian states. I don't remember exactly how this journal entry works, but we will work towards it, as we also, sneak in the knife on Brazil here, because of course they invited us inside, so we'll come inside and then we'll drink their milkshake quite promptly. So we catch Persia with their hand in the cookie jar and get a nice side in for making them a protectorate. We might get our hands caught in the cookie jar because Persia doesn't have a war goal on us, so they will enforce us out eventually. And our front did get bricked because we were a little bit slow to join, and we are also tidying things up with Brazil, and we also have to deal with this. This is a secession movement, so we have to deal with it in a somewhat timely fashion, although to be fair, Persia being a protectorate's like a way bigger deal, so maybe we just shouldn't care about this. But in any case, our guy who did get pushed off of this front did get kind of zipped into Kandahar, which, sometimes you get lost in Kandahar. And this is going to be rather good for us, except for we want to be on adamant defense. And also, let's recruit this defensive strategist if his ideology doesn't suck super hard, and in order to try and dig in our heels and hope that we can conscript up fast enough that we can resist Persia and keep Kandahar from being enforced upon. Also approaching, not having negative relations here with Austria, but it'll be a while before we have positive relations. We didn't have an interest here. So we didn't get kind of those plays, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but we do have another declare interest that we can put in, and knowing that France is France, I think we'll put it in here just in case France revs, and I think the next one, well, Great Britain's unlikely to rev again, and we already have the play kind of developing here in Germany, so kind of some opportunities that might have been had for us to sway in are not going to be there. We also don't mind going over 25 infamy, I think, given the current context of how we are approaching this run, because we're going to have a ton of lulls where we have 0 infamy. Holy Batman. That's... I'm not sure I've ever seen a CSA this big, actually. I think this is the single biggest CSA I've ever seen. Well, they're probably going to win, so let's start improving relations with them. We probably could have microed it a little bit better, but we were stretched just a little bit too thin to enforce on Persia. So unfortunately, we do have to eat a little bit of nasty infamy. But again, it's not a very big deal, considering we're not actively declaring plays ourselves, especially because we want to try and use the Unite the Principalities journal entry rather than fighting Austria. So currently, there's no one who has invited us inside, and so it's not a big deal. We're also floating a ton of influence, so we will decay this infamy down relatively quickly with the increased modifier that we get from floating influence here, the plus 25% decay. For the record, the Persia War, in particular, we would have much rather just declared for Make Persia Protectorate rather than side in to make Protectorate on Persia, because if we declare on Persia, they will put a war goal in on us, like war reparations, that they can't enforce, and so we can draw out the war longer, and this is a big reason why we lost, and this is going to be kind of a struggle that we are going to face, both actually not having a very strong military, so we have to make interesting moves to try and win wars, but on top of not having a strong military, we are not going to be having wars we're going to have a lot of wars where our opponents will auto-enforce us below 0 because they won't have any war goals on us because we're swaying in. We see another one here between Egypt and the Ottoman Empire. Now, we want to fight the Ottoman Empire to claim a bunch of this stuff, so we're going to ask the Ottoman Empire if they want assistance. That way we can come inside. He's going to say, yes, you can cross the threshold, you can come into my abode, and then this is the rookie mistake that he made. I'm not sure if we are going to get anything too great here, considering, well... maybe Adana's a kind of okay here. We went to side in quickly before the nature of this kind of changes rapidly. Libyan desert would be fantastic. Libya will actually give us an interest in North Africa, and we have a decent chunk of infamy right now, so let's go for that. And this will give us an opportunity to go for the Ottomans kind of immediately after, because they've allowed us into their home, which was a rookie mistake, and so now all we'll have to do is help them. defeat Egypt, which should be fairly manageable here, and we will have an... we will also have... we will use the Shadow Army here to defend against landings, but we will have a native interest once this war is completed in North Africa, which means we can park the interest elsewhere. For whatever reason, our final interest keeps unassigning. We keep putting it in France or Great Britain, and it keeps kind of getting away from us, which is a bit unfortunate. But our interest here in the Ottoman Empire has proven to be useful. Who was the starter of this war? It's absolutely insane that they're like starting this war here when they are so much weaker. I guess maybe they were hoping for some type of support. To be fair, we could try and peel off a state in this way, but it doesn't look like we can get anything. So we will be trying to assist the Ottoman Empire versus Egypt, and if we can't enforce, this isn't too big a deal because this was only a 2 infamy war goal here in Libya. So Dracula, being a market liberal, is feeling quite nice here because we are very late to the party, having to do a lot of law passes to kind of pull some stuff off. We're super late to the party, getting onto no migration controls. We have like 0 pops available in the capital, only 2 million pops with kind of taking a look at things. If I'm not mistaken, we're gonna have, well, I guess our SOL isn't like sky high, but we would have been getting a lot more migration if we allowed people to actually move around, and so hopefully we can get some mass migrations once we get onto this, but a big part is this market liberal, of course, is going to... do market liberals not care about... I thought market liberals cared about this, but they don't care about this. But okay, we have a powerful enough industrialist guy that will be able to do this. And also, the Free Trade Party, this bloc, being both landowners and industrialists, because we have a market liberal guy, is going to allow this party to be more consistent, and having these two together is going to allow them to win elections more often, so we'll be able to keep them in power. The only problem with our kind of like setup where we're going Dracula and we're staying maybe landed or wealth voting is it's going to be really, really, really tough to get the trade unions up and going. And they have really, really strong bonuses. So this is probably not optimal, but it is at least a fresh and kind of different way of playing. Manufacturing industry throughput and workforce ratio are just like too good to give up. We decided not to get involved in this play because I'm pretty sure we would not be able to ensure a humiliate on Great Britain in order to enforce on them. They might not put war goals on us, or even worse, they might put war goals on us and be able to enforce, taking kind of all of our dirt over here. And just to kind of avoid that situation, we did not choose to sway in on this. And I'm not really sure how this Ottoman one is going to shake out. We couldn't really get up and going fast enough to fight both Egypt and Spain. We're really not that strong, and this is exacerbated by the fact that for the last several years we haven't really been starting wars that would help us out very much. This is not a big help relative to the infamy cost. This isn't a big help. We scuffed Persia, and so overall the power level of this run is going to be a little bit lower, despite us having, the Prince of Darkness himself, the Cool Shades Duke, Count Dracula. Wait, that's not a duke, that's a count. I think we're going to conclude the episode here. This episode, we did do a few maneuvers to get Dracula into power, and then we started to do this expansion path that has been a little bit interesting, where we are only attacking people with whom we have sided with a Diplo play. So far, that is limiting us to Brazil and the Ottomans. These are the only two people we are allowed to attack per our... we can also attack... Kandahar, per our rules that we are limiting ourselves with. Next episode, we are going to transfer Moldavia and try and use this Unite the Principalities journal entry. We have positive relations with everyone in the region, and we just need the personal union situation resolved. And so we will be doing that next episode, and hopefully forming Romania. I think that in retrospect, this run could have been stronger if we had just researched nationalism way earlier and went for press the union, this type of thing. I don't know exactly how things will shake out for us after we click press the union, but I believe that they might give us some land in order to form Romania, in which case this would be very nice, especially for Dracula. Also just like very, very neat how we have an immortal with market liberal as our landowner leader. Now, it still, I don't think it makes sense to make him leader of the country. We are doing this entirely for flavor of the run. That way people have to invite us inside. But if you just had your landowners just always be market liberal and didn't make them leader of the country, this would be incredibly strong as well. We can also make him a general again, and I think that we probably should. That was my bad. That was my failure here, because I believe now as a monarch we can grant him command, and he can lead our armies, which of course we do want him to lead our armies. He's somewhere. He's leading an army somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Let's give him, of course, the real army of Mr. Dracula. If I may come inside, say what? Which of course is the natural army of choice. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that, have a good one.